In the novel Whispers of Enchantment, Aylia Richardson, a powerful witch, finds herself entangled in a web of supernatural intrigue and passionate confrontations. The story unfolds in a world where vampires, werewolves, and witches coexist, each guarding their own society's secrets and battling internal conflicts. Aylia, alongside the ancient and formidable vampire warden Marcus, is summoned to help two lovers, Troy and Cassie, plagued by a malicious spell. Troy has unwillingly become a hybrid of vampire and werewolf due to a renegade wolf leader's dark magic, threatening his control and endangering those around him. Aylia, equipped with her coven's enchanted necklace, a repository of spells bound by blood, must reverse the curse. However, her quest becomes personal when she discovers her ex-lover, Nico Moore, the Alpha of the Royal Guard, possesses her stolen necklace. Nico, a complex figure torn between loyalty and love, challenges Aylia to retrieve it from the heart of werewolf territory, Hotel Italy, a front for the Werewolf Society's headquarters. This daring act not only forces Aylia to confront Nico, but also drags her into a vortex of unresolved emotions and past betrayals. As the narrative escalates, Aylia's determination to regain her magical artifact intertwines with the resurgence of her complicated relationship with Nico. Their reunion is a tempestuous blend of desire and distrust, culminating in intense encounters that blur the lines between love and vengeance. Nico, despite his alpha status, reveals vulnerabilities and a hidden agenda that hint at a deeper plot involving the mythical Benedanti werewolves and a hunt for evil witches. Amidst the high-stakes tension and supernatural politics, Aylia and Nico's connection reignites, leading them into a tumultuous journey of self-discovery and redemption. As they navigate through a maze of deceit, they must confront their past mistakes and decide whether their love can conquer the divides between their respective worlds. Ultimately, Whispers of Enchantment is a tale of forgiveness, sacrifice, and the indomitable power of love, set against the backdrop of a magical world teetering on the brink of chaos. It explores themes of trust, betrayal, and the lengths one will go for those they cherish, weaving a captivating narrative that blurs the boundaries between enemies and lovers. Chapter 1. A Witch's Torment. Aylia Richardson appeared in the deserted Nevada diner parking lot in a flash of air and evening wind that blew her long chestnut hair around her shoulders. Beside her was her transporter, an ancient and powerful leader in the vampire world's lawkeepers, the wardens, who looked more hot Viking than blood sucker. He was a friend to her coven of the Rain in their quest to protect humanity, and to the Werewolf Society, whose civil war had turned dangerous to them all. Her gaze swept over the 5 people standing before them. Among them were 3 more vampire wardens, brothers Evan, Aiden, and Troy Brooks. Beside Troy was Cassie, the werewolf that he loved. It was for Troy and Cassie that Marcus had brought her here today to help by binding a spell that had been cast on Troy. The leader of the rebel wolves had dabbled in magic he couldn't control, mixing it with Troy's blood to turn himself into some kind of vicious hybrid mix of wolf and vampire. Instead, he had turned Troy into the hybrid, and not without complications. Troy couldn't control the wolf inside him at all. She'd need her coven necklace to use that kind of powerful magic. The necklace that held every spell she had cast with the blood bond of her coven. The one that the rebel leader had stolen from her to use in his spell. The one Marcus claimed Cassie's brother Nico had recovered and not returned to her. Aylia's gaze slid to Nico Moore, her ex-lover, ex-love, and soon-to-be enemy. Her eyes skidded over his dark good looks, power and sex fanning off of him, before her attention landed solidly on the black and red pendant resting on his chest. Anger and hurt rolled through Aylia and she charged towards Nico, her booted feet pounding on concrete. "You have my necklace?" she demanded, not the least bit cowed by the fact that he was the centuries-old Alpha of the Royal Guard, or that he towered over her 5 feet 4 inches by a full foot. Her chest tightened with emotion, and she could hear the rasp in her voice, the emotion she couldn't control. "Why would you keep it from me? You know what it means to me. You know." She stopped herself, aware of their audience, unwilling to reveal her destiny that only Nico and her coven knew. She would be dead in 6 months on her 26th birthday without it, killed by a centuries-old coven curse that had been cast by an ancient warlock who'd been in love with a witch who had broken his heart. "Because I was protecting your sweet little witchy ass, that's why," he said, his light brown hair curling to his chin and framing amber eyes that flashed with heat, eyes that smoldered with a look that said, even after more than a year apart, that he was remembering every inch of her body, as she remembered the perfection of his beneath the leather he wore. She brushed her hands down the hips of her black knee-length skirt, fighting the urge to rip her necklace from his neck, angry that he could still make her want him. 6 months, Nico, she whispered, reminding him of just how dark the sin of his betrayal was. And if Andres gets a hold of you, he said, you won't have 6 months left. He'll kill you for the spell in your necklace so that he can try the magic again. Andres. Just hearing the name of the wolf that had been infected with red rabies-like virus filled her with guilt. She'd created a spell to bind the virus and remove the killer in Andres. Instead, she'd given him control and turned him from a mindless killer to a calculating killer who'd become the leader of the rebels. Just give me my necklace, she said, as angry now at herself for what she had done as she was with Nico. If you'd have shifted while you were wearing it, you might have destroyed it. She lifted her palm to his chest and the necklace glowed, then snapped from his neck and into her hand. She closed her hand around it. It knows where it belongs. Her voice tightened. And so do you, Nico. She turned away, needing distance from Nico. He shackled her arm and pulled her to his side, lowering his voice. We need to talk. I don't have anything to say to you, Wolf. She'd barely issued the reply when she gasped at the fierce heat radiating off of her necklace, warning her of an attack. She opened her mouth to shout a warning, but it was too late. A blinding bright light flashed like an explosion around Aylia, around them all, and she could feel the crackle of powerful magic. Everything went black, as if someone had shut off every glimmer of light, both natural and man-made. This was not the magic of a newly practicing wolf. This was the magic of a powerful witch or wizard. Someone grabbed Aylia from behind. Give me the necklace, bitch. A familiar voice growled in her ear, the grip on her arms brutally tight. Nico, Aylia screamed. It's Andres. It's Andres. A second later, Andres howled in excruciating pain and released her. I got you, Nico said, pulling her away from her attacker and shoving her behind him. A snarl filled the air and Aylia felt her heart jump to her throat. She was all but certain Andres had shifted to wolf. Run, Nico shouted. Run, Aylia. Run now. She turned to run, but it was too dark. Wolfish snarls suddenly seemed to surround her from seemingly everywhere. More magic, she was certain, but it didn't change the risk of real wolves that might lurk nearby. She didn't know where to go for fear she'd run right into the middle of a battle. I said run, damn it, Nico growled, scooping her off her feet and taking off with her at a lightning speed that defied the darkness. Relieved by Nico's presence, Aylia's mind cleared, and she did what she should have already done. Desperate for light, Aylia tightened her grip on her necklace. Using the ancient magic inside, bound by centuries of coven blood, she cast away the darkness. Light blasted into her eyes and Nico turned in circles, surveying their surroundings. Relief washed over Aylia as she found them still in the parking lot and no one directly around them about to attack, but the snarls of battle were nearby. Nico turned towards the field beyond the pavement. No, Aylia whispered at the sight of Nico's sister lying on the ground in a pool of blood. Marcus was leaning over her, feeding her his blood from his wrist. No, Nico echoed, the pain in his voice tore at Aylia's heart. No. He slid Aylia to her feet, grabbing her hand and running, as if he was afraid to let go of her. Aylia kept pace with him the best she could, fear wrenching at her gut. Cassie wasn't moving, she wasn't responding to the blood Marcus was feeding her, and Aylia knew that wasn't good. Marcus was powerful, ancient, a healer beyond that of a normal vampire. Her heart felt like it was going to explode in her chest. She scanned for the vampire wardens. She scanned for Troy, who she knew would be by Cassie's side if he could, fearing the worst. She found Aiden and Evan in bloody brawls with shifted rebel wolves just beyond Cassie and Marcus's location. Then to their left, she gasped at the sight of a clawed creature that was glowing silver in vicious war with the black wolf she recognized as Andres. Troy. He'd shifted into the hybrid beast she'd been told that he couldn't control. Nico dropped to his knees beside Cassie and Marcus. Aylia felt sick at the sight of Cassie's ripped throat and pale face. Why isn't she healing from your blood? Nico demanded of Marcus, grabbing the warden's shoulder. Heal her, vampire. It was an illogical alpha demand, one Aylia knew was driven by fear for his sister. It was his way of trying to take control of the uncontrollable. Aylia didn't give herself time to think of the consequences of her actions, of how easily healing magic could kill an inexperienced practitioner. For 6 months Nico had been her lover, her heart, and while Cassie had been away on a special guard assignment during that time and Aylia did not know her well, she knew how much Nico loved her. And no matter what had happened between her and Nico, no matter what he'd done or not done, she still loved him. She had to help Cassie no matter what the price. Aylia pressed her hand to Marcus's back, her other fist holding the necklace. She closed her eyes, calling on every part of herself and her magic. She willed her healing power, and that of the necklace, into Marcus, into his blood. The necklace warmed and glowed in her hand and still she called for more magic. Her hand heated, her spine burned. Everything around her went black again, but not her mind. In her mind she saw Cassie healing, saw her alive and well. Magic began to splinter through Aylia's body as Cassie's pain became her pain. In some far part of her mind she heard Nico calling her name, felt his arms around her. A piercing blast of energy shook her and her knees buckled. The world blurred in and out until Aylia realized she was in Nico's lap and he was sitting on the ground against a tree. "Cassie," she asked, "please tell me she's okay." "She's awake," he said, pressing her hair from her face, brushing blood from her nose. "You're bleeding. You could have killed yourself." She touched his cheek, trailing her fingers over the goatee that gave him that ultra-wicked look she loved so much. "I'm fine." "Cassie is all right then." "I'm more than fine. Because of you, Aylia," he said, his voice low, hoarse. "She's fine because of you." She opened her mouth to respond when she heard Cassie's panicked voice behind her. "Troy. Where's Troy?" Aylia turned to locate Cassie, eager to confirm her well-being, but suddenly Cassie ran past them, her bloodied, torn clothes hanging off her newly healed body. "Troy!" Cassie screamed. "Troy!" Nico settled Aylia onto the ground against the tree, and they both quickly identified where Cassie was headed. Not more than 200 yards away, Troy, still glowing silver, stood above Andres's dead body, his eyes blazing red. "Cassie, stop!" Nico shouted, pushing to his feet and launching into a run. Instantly, Evan and Aiden were running towards Troy as well from another angle. But they were too late to stop Cassie. Cassie stopped in front of Troy and he immediately grabbed her and pulled her to him, howling as he did. Aylia's heart lurched and she shoved to her feet, fighting dizziness as she watched Marcus join Nico and his wardens to form a line in front of Troy and Cassie. Over and over, Cassie screamed for them to stay back, that Troy wouldn't hurt her. Aylia took off running towards them at the same moment that Nico lunged at Troy and Cassie. Troy let out a fierce, ear-piercing screech like nothing Aylia had ever heard and then threw Cassie over his shoulder. A second later, he was gone, traveling so fast she couldn't even see him move. Aiden and Evan disappeared a moment later, using their vampire speed to give chase. Nico stood there, unmoving, staring at the spot where his sister had been seconds before, no doubt aware of the limitations of a wolf to match a vampire's pace. Aylia closed her arm around his, willing him to look at her. "He won't hurt her. He loves her, Nico." She stepped in front of him and took his hand and his eyes met hers. Pain radiated from their depths, fear that she had never seen in her alpha lover. "He won't kill her." She pressed her necklace to his palm. "I'm so sure he won't that I'd bet my life on it." Shock registered in his face, his amber eyes darkening before he pressed the necklace back into her hand and closing her fingers around it. "Use your magic to fix the chain and put it back on where it belongs, Aylia." Marcus stepped to their sides. "She's right about Troy, Nico. Be it wolf, vampire, or the man he used to be, Troy loves Cassie. I'd bet my life as well that he won't hurt her." Aiden and Evan reappeared in a rush of speed. "We'll never catch him," Aiden said. "He's freaking amazingly fast and he's already too far gone. We're better off to anticipate his destination and have Marcus flash us there." "You're a fucking vampires," Nico growled. "Run faster and stop standing around. What if he stops somewhere with her in the woods? How the hell do we anticipate that? What if he—" Nico's eyes flashed yellow the way they did before he shifted, revealing a lack of control she'd never seen in him before. "Now, I'll go after them." He took off running. "What if they have a confrontation and no one is there to stop it?" Aylia said, turning to Marcus. "Stop him." You have to stop him. He needs the run, Marcus said. Let him work through what he's got to work through. Aylia turned again to follow Nico with her eyes, watching as his clothes tore, and his body shifted until he was a deep coffee brown, ancient werewolf fading into the distance, gone as quickly as he'd come back into her life. Aylia felt the rare prickle of tears. I caused what happened to Troy, and now, Cassie, she said, glancing at Marcus, not able to look at Troy's brothers and risk seeing their blame too. He knows that. I know that. He just, please, Marcus, can you just flash me to Troy so I can try and fix this? Marcus had been certain Troy would take Cassie to the mountain house where they'd been staying together, and that's exactly what Troy did. Now, hours later, Aylia walked out onto the back porch of the house to find Marcus on the back porch waiting on her. Not only had Cassie been safe upon her arrival with Troy, she'd calmed Troy enough for him to shift back to his normal blood-sucking self. Aylia had then bound the magic in him, giving him control over the wolf that was now a part of him. It was the best she could do. She couldn't destroy the wolf inside him without killing him. You did good, darling, Marcus said, leaning on the wooden railing, the midnight full moon behind him. She grimaced. You know I hate when you call me that. Would you rather I call you Little Witch? Not funny, she said at the reference to Nico's nickname for her. Where is he? He'd been there during the spell casting, dressed in one of the Brooks brothers' clothes he'd borrowed, but had disappeared with Marcus as soon as it was over. Some werewolf business to attend, he said. A bone to chew or something like that. Hurt by Nico's absence, by the fact that he didn't want to see her somehow, she managed a weak attempt at a smile. You know, Nico hates your dog jokes as much as I hate your nicknames. That's why I tell them, he said. Wolf Boy is too uptight. He pushed off the railing. Need a lift to your apartment? Yes, please, she said. For now she really had no choice but to go back to the rental Marcus had provided when he'd promised to help her locate her necklace. She touched her necklace, knowing it was time to leave the past behind, no matter how painful. I need to return to Texas, back to the coven. Andres is dead and I have my necklace back. Have you told your mother you've located the necklace? She nodded. Yes. She cried like I just told her I was dying. So did my stepfather. And your father? Is my father, she said, which meant he was too busy and almighty as one of the 12 lords in the central coven to worry about the mistakes that were she and her mother. He studied her a long moment, his eyes too intelligent and knowing. I'll spare you the flight home and take you when you're ready. No, she said. I think I want to fly. Very well, he said. I'll have a ticket waiting for you. He walked to her side to touch her arm and flashed them into motion without warning. After an instant of stilled time, she was suddenly standing in front of a Vegas hotel and casino, one of the few not secretly owned by the Werewolf Society, and smack in the middle of the valet area with people around. Why are we here? Aren't you afraid of being seen popping in and out places? It's Saturday at 4 a.m. in Vegas, he said. The people here are either drunk or they think everything is part of a show, and we're here, my darling, because Nico thought you'd be more comfortable meeting him at a non-society property. Her breath hitched. Nico, he confirmed and produced a paper sleeve with a plastic key sticking out. She hesitated and then took it. Marcus disappeared without another word. Aylia cursed the vampire and closed her hand around the key, then turned to face the hotel. Her purse had been lost long ago. She had no money, no phone, nothing but the key, but there was no way she was going to a hotel room with Nico. Why wasn't she going to a hotel room with Nico? Her mind was blank a moment before she silently cursed herself for her short memory. He'd kept her necklace, he'd sent her away. He'd blamed her for Andres when she'd wanted to save lives. No, she was not going to a hotel room where she would be blinded by passion. Aylia marched forward and didn't stop until she was inside the hotel at the courtesy phones. She punched in the number written on the paper sleeve. He answered on the second ring. I'm not coming up, she said before he could speak. You come down. Meet me in the lobby. Come upstairs, Aylia, he said softly, a rough wolfish texture to his tone that sent a shiver down her spine. No, come upstairs, Aylia, he repeated more forcefully. We need to talk and we don't need an audience. We won't just talk. We'll do whatever you want us to do. Talk. Talk, he repeated. She inhaled and let the breath out. She shouldn't be considering this. Just talk. Come upstairs, Aylia. He hung up. Chapter 3. Deuces Wild. Aylia rolled over in the king-size plush hotel bed with luxurious sheets that were laced with the scent of Nico. She stared at the ceiling and touched the empty side of the bed where he'd been when she went to sleep. How had she thought she could go to a hotel room to talk with that wolf and not end up bent over the bed in every which way afterwards? She sat up, the sheet falling to her waist, the cool air conditioning reminding her of how naked she was, and how thoroughly pleasured. She shoved aside the blankets she deserved last night after he'd held her necklace captive. She reached to her neck to touch it and froze. No, she whispered. No, no, no. This couldn't be happening. Her necklace was gone. You son of a bitch. She pushed off the bed and rushed to the bathroom. Nico had somehow located her purse and her cell phone and had it delivered, and she was thankful now for that more than ever. She grabbed her cell phone and thumbed through the numbers to punch in his. She had almost deleted it a million times before. He answered on the first ring. Give it back. He laughed low and deep. I'm at Benedanti. Come and get it if you dare. Which? He hung up. You never doubled down with a werewolf. Aylia should have known deuces were more than wild with Nico. They were dangerous and she'd end up a fool. Oh what? A fool. That was what Aylia was thinking 30 minutes later as she charged through the Werewolf Society's cover operation for their headquarters Hotel Italy. Witch hunting magic. Her magic that arrogant, no-good alpha wolf had stolen from her. Again. He'd stolen it again. All she had left now was a genius book. Sized after the loving is over batch of regret. It killed her to know that while she had fallen asleep in his arms more at peace than she had been any night of the time they'd been apart, that he'd been plotting against her. That she still wore the very clothes that he had so expertly ripped off of her. Come and get it, Nico had dared. He didn't believe she'd go after him, onto wolf territory where she was no longer welcome. Aylia cleared the masses of slot machines that were as plentiful as the wolves the humans didn't know surrounded them, then headed to Tower 3. That would be the VIP section of the property, where only society wolves and select others were allowed, like she had been while aiding the wolves in the Civil War. Her boots hit the tiled floor. She stopped a few steps before she came into view of the base of the elevators. Just to the left of the security desk was the wooden arched doorway of the VIP bar that was her destination. Benedanti, the sign above the door read, and she ground her teeth, all too aware the location had meant to intimidate her. The name was a reference to a mythical pack of Italian werewolves alleged to have hunted evil witches, much like Nico, who had apparently hunted her and her necklace. Her fingers balled into fists by her sides. She was going to show him evil all right. The wolf wasn't the one winning this battle. Aylia headed for the bar's entryway, not the least bit surprised when a bulky security guard, dressed in his typical Men in Black wannabe dark suit, stepped forward to block her entry. She knew him just as many of the wolves here would know her. Aylia, the wolf, Ned Wright said with a nod, his lips curved with the flare of his nostrils, his hazel eyes raking over her. Ned, she replied, suddenly all too aware of the wild mass of her long chestnut hair and most likely smudged makeup. Not that her appearance mattered. A wolf's sensitive nose would smell sex, anger, and Nico all over her. What did he do? Ned asked, not bothering with a name. Break out the champagne. And roses. Like wolves were ever about champagne and roses, she thought, but Aylia bit back the reply and the reference to the very nasty way she and Nico had parted ways. She'd save her anger for the wolf that deserved it. Is he here? Downstairs, Ned said, and she was walking before the word was fully out. Almost immediately, Aylia cut to her right, quickly traveling a set of stairs leading to the bottom level of the bar. The sound of an old AC/DC classic, a Nico favorite, touched her ears, bringing back memories better forgotten. She quickened her pace. She wanted Nico behind her. She wanted to stop thinking about him and wanting him. The 6 months she'd lived here, working to bind the red virus in the infected wolves, when she'd been in his bed and life, had meant something to her but not to him. Aylia cleared the last step to the lower level of the bar without stopping. Witch back on a mission, a witch about to go alpha on an alpha. He'd betrayed her, he'd used her, he'd hurt her. It was all she could process, all she knew. She rushed down an aisle between packed wooden tables and a leather-covered bar, ignoring the stares of a busy Friday night crowd. She found Nico where he always was when he was here, in the back room, standing at a pool table, looking like sex and sin in leather. Power effortlessly radiated off of him. She stopped under an archway and his amber-colored eyes lifted from where his second-in-charge, Cole Smith, was leaning forward about to take a shot, his long blonde hair tied at his nape. If she'd expected some show of surprise at her presence, there was none. Those eyes of Nico's were so calculating, so probing, so aware of her on levels no other man had ever been, and she feared never would be again. His gaze found hers. Time stood still, and there was only the two of them, the tension between them, the accusations, and yes, the passion. She tried not to think about him naked, her naked, about the things they'd done together, but there was no hope. Even his neatly trimmed goatee reminded her of how perfectly it had rasped her skin only hours before. That she wanted him after his betrayal defied reason. It angered her that she could still want him after all he'd put her through, both past and present. Aylia funneled that anger into her natural-born magic, charging forward and holding her palm so that it faced the table. Every ball on the canvas flew into the side pockets. "Damn it, Aylia," Cole muttered. "I was winning." It was spoken like it was still the norm to see her here, like her presence wasn't forbidden by her coven who declared the wolves enemies. Aylia focused on Nico, the asshole she'd once loved and probably still did. She still did. She still did, and she was really a messed up witch. Her gaze slid to his neck, to the chain that hung beneath his shirt, buried where she couldn't use magic to call it to her. And of course he knew that. She stopped in front of him and reached for it. He seemed to anticipate her move, dropping the pool stick at what seemed the same moment. He shackled her wrist, his eyes simmered with fire, a warning. The room went silent around them except for the music. A moment then too bled into time, standing still, the calm before the certain storm. She could feel all the eyes on them, could feel the mistake of her actions. This was Royal Guard pack territory, and she just challenged the leader in public. Was a foolish thing to do, to back Nico into a corner, to force him to stand against her or risk challenge by one of his pack for his role. Suddenly he moved, and she was molded against him, his fingers threaded through her hair. "You're on dangerous territory, my little witch," he murmured in a deep, raspy voice that was both predator and wolf. His hand slid over her backside, and his mouth came down on hers, his tongue pressing past her teeth. Shock paralyzed Aylia for a moment, but his words replayed in her mind. Dangerous territory. She was on dangerous territory. If Nico appeared weak to his pack, he'd be challenged for leadership, and someone, maybe even him, would die. She didn't want anyone to die. She didn't want him to die, no matter how she might despise his actions. It was that clarity that allowed her to relax into him, to forget her anger, her necklace he'd stolen. Aylia moaned and melted into the kiss, into the hot possession of his mouth on hers. It was a kiss that was meant to claim her, to submit her to his command. He was telling everyone in the room, including her, that she belonged to him. And it scared her how much she wanted it to be true. How much she still wanted. A wolf that was wicked to. Chapter 4. A wicked wolf's secret. Aylia gasped as Nico tore his mouth from hers and growled, "We're leaving." Before storming towards the exit with her in tow, she stumbled to keep up with him, but was all about getting the heck out of there before someone really did challenge Nico. Not to mention the fact that she was embarrassingly aroused. In the midst of his pack, who could smell her desire. Her gaze swept over Cole, who wasn't just Nico's second in charge but his most trusted friend, trying to read his expression. Instead, her eyes fell on Serena Edwards, the beautiful blonde wolf who had always wanted Nico, and was now trying to kill Aylia with a look of pure hatred. Serena, who had been there with Nico this past year when Aylia had not, who had most likely filled Aylia's place in Nico's bed. Aylia told herself that it didn't matter, that she didn't care what Nico had done or with who, despite the knots forming in her stomach. Nico had sent her away. He'd blamed her like the rest of the society leaders for magic gone wrong, even when she and her coven had warned them it was risky. Magic that was now locked in her necklace that they'd clearly decided was too dangerous to be left in her hands. They exited the bar and Aylia knew Nico's lack of words weren't about the cameras and audio everywhere in this damn place. Fury radiated off of him. Well, join the club, she thought. She was more than angry herself. She was one big ball of ticked off witch. He kept walking, pulling her towards the elevators when he normally would give her time to catch up. She knew where they were going, knew this entire plan of hers. Okay, she hadn't really had a plan, and that was the problem, had backfired. She was about to be back in a private room with Nico. Oh yeah, she was in trouble. Even if she told him to keep the necklace, which wasn't an option, he couldn't let her walk out of here right after a confrontation. He punched a code into the elevator pad, and they entered, his hand firmly around hers. He still didn't look at her. There was only one level separating them from the floor dedicated to the royal guard, and his private suite now. Inside the elevator, he held on to her and keyed in yet another code. Statement of dominance for those who watched on camera, and without question, for her. He was ever the dominant one, which had usually aroused her. Hell, it still did, which was exactly why it was all she could do not to pull away. She'd never gather her wits with her body aching to rub herself all over the damnable wolf. But she didn't, and not because of him or her, but because of the cameras. Because she'd learned long ago that the wolves had survived as a race for thousands of years by looking for weakness in their own and destroying it before it destroyed them. The doors shut and he turned to her, stared down at her, his eyes rippling with the yellow of his wolf, etched with heat and anger. There was one hell of an explosion coming. Of that there was no question. They arrived on his floor and he released her hand, a tease of freedom she didn't have, and she felt her anger expand. He was just so damn good at letting her go. Aylia curled her arms in front of her chest and exited into the hallway and to the right. He fell into step with her by her side. She was aware of him, felt him all over, as if he still touched her, the entire way down the too long, carpeted path that ended at his door. He keyed yet another code to enter, and she wanted to scream at him to hurry when there was nothing slow about his movement. She wanted inside the suite, she wanted out of the public eye where everything bottled up inside her could explode. He shoved open the door and she was already in motion, ready to end the silence between them. Nico followed on her heels, kicking the door shut. She started to whirl around to face him, when he crowded her and pressed her back against the door. His fists pressed against the door, framing her face. Don't ever challenge me in front of the pack again. Someone could have easily ended up dead tonight. You know this. You know the rules. You stole my necklace, Aylia blasted back. Where are your rules, Nico? That stunt you pulled wasn't the way to get it back. You know damn well how the pack operates. You know how easily someone ends up dead. I'm not a wolf, she said. I'm a witch and I act like a witch, and we both know that's a bad word in your world. I don't belong here, and neither does my necklace. His fingers slid around her neck, his mouth lowering above hers. You belong with me, he growled, slanting his mouth over hers, in a brutally possessive, deep kiss, a branding with his tongue. Aylia tried not to respond, but his tongue stroked hers, hot and hungry. Somehow she pushed against him and tore her mouth from his. No, she panted, though she wasn't sure if she was talking to him, or to herself. Her body was defying her. Her nipples ached and she was wet. Stop. I'm not letting you. Fuck me senseless again, Nico, and then fuck me over. You took my necklace. Nico. You left me for dead. I'm not going to forget that. You thought I wouldn't come here, you thought I'd try some other approach to getting it back. Well, you were wrong. Word to the wise. Don't dare someone who you've given a death sentence. They have nothing to lose. Do you think I'd have survived as the alpha of the guard for 100 years? If I didn't know that? I knew you'd come for the necklace. I didn't know you were going to charge into the bar and forget you were dealing with the pack. She drew back slightly. What? You knew I'd come for it? Why take it if you knew I'd come for it? I don't understand. His eyes flashed with something dark, something tormented. You will, he said. I promise you. You will. He scooped her up and started carrying her towards the back of the suite, towards his bedroom. Chapter 6. Another morning after Aylia woke up, and once again somehow she was on her stomach. Actually, there was no somehow about it. Wolves, her wolf, liked her on her stomach for all kinds of naughty reasons. She didn't move, wondering where Nico was, wishing this time she could wake up with him beside her. His muffled voice sounded somewhere in the distance in the other room. She rolled over and sat up, blissfully sore all over, and looked around the fancy hotel suite that was his home, her home. Nico had reminded her of that over and over in the hours since she'd arrived here. Her gaze swept beyond the navy blue curtains that matched the comforter that had long ago been shoved to the floor. Vegas lights brightened a dark night sky, telling her another day was gone. Aylia pushed to her feet, not bothering with a robe, but pretty desperate for some clean clothes since hers were filthy. She tiptoed to the cracked open bedroom door and listened to what Nico was saying. We need heavy coverage of the Reno territory, he said. We know that's where Andre set up heavy rebel forces. She could see him pacing and she smiled. He always paced when he gave orders. She missed this. She'd missed him. She headed into the bathroom and turned on the standing shower next to the tub. Her gaze caught on the bag by the sink. She walked over and looked inside, only to find all her favorite products. Hair, face lotion, even the makeup she'd always bought in one of the stores. Here. And a leopard print terry robe, just like the one she'd once worn as a joke. She laughed, stepping into the flow of hot water to shower as she replayed the memory in her head. You're not the only animal in the house and you'd best remember it, she told him. She was still smiling when the door to the stall opened and Nico appeared, fully dressed and looking like sex and sin and leather all over again. He leaned against the shower frame. All is as it should be. My hot little witch is naked and wet. She laughed. Nothing you can take credit for. I'll be happy to do my best to turn you into, what was it you said? A puddle of desire. She rolled her eyes. I should have known that silly statement was going to come back to haunt me. The boutique downstairs just delivered you some clothes and I ordered food. Oh good. I'm starving. He reached into the shower and kissed her, seemingly uncaring of the water splashing all over him. She laughed. My wolf is wet but he's not naked. My world isn't right. He started undressing and she happily watched. When he finally stepped into the shower with her, he pressed her against the wall. Hot male hardness settled between her thighs. Her world was indeed right. She belonged. She was home. And the little voice in the back of her head that was telling her it wasn't true was evil. Thankfully, it faded with each kiss and touch from Nico. And when he was suddenly on his knees in front of her, it disappeared completely. Oh yes, she thought, flattening her hands on the wall and gasping as his mouth closed down on her clit. Her world was absolutely perfect right now. A long while later, Aylia finished drying her hair, applied makeup, and slipped on her new robe before going in search of Nico. She pulled open the bedroom door, bringing the open concept living room and kitchen into view. She found Nico standing with his back to her, looking out the window that covered the entire wall beside a large mahogany table covered with food. He was dressed again, and she could tell he had his arms folded in front of him. She waited, expecting him to acknowledge her, certain his wolf senses had made him aware of her presence. But oddly he didn't. Nico. He turned immediately, seeming to snap himself out of deep thought. The sandwiches arrive, so whenever you're ready we can eat. Okay. Yes. I'm starving. I just want to get dressed. Did you say that you had some things brought up for me? Your closet, babe. Her closet. Her closet. Like she'd never left. Right. Of course. My closet. His lips twitched. In our bedroom. She grinned and started to head back into the bedroom, but something stopped her. She turned back around and found Nico staring out of the window again. Something was wrong and suddenly clothes were unimportant. Aylia walked towards him and he rotated to face her as she sat down, arching a brow at her reappearance. I thought you were getting dressed? She settled her elbows on the table and her chin on her fist to study him. I want to know what's wrong, my big bad brooding wolf. How did Andres know I had the necklace? He asked immediately, as if he had been waiting for her question, wanting her to ask it. Someone has to be on the inside. Someone close to me. And there's only one person who knew I had the necklace. A knock sounded on the door. Cole, Nico said. She kept her focus on Nico, trying to figure out where he had been headed. It's not Cole, if that's what you're thinking. His expression said it was. I'll happily let you convince me of that later. He called out across the room. Come in, asshole. Aylia shook her head at the familiar greeting of the two very close friends. Nico was wrong about Cole. They were like brothers. It wasn't him. Cole came sauntering into the suite dressed in his typical statement-making. Red leather, with his long blonde hair loose around his shoulder. Just in. Time for dinner, I see. He headed for the table and nodded at Nico. Asshole. Back at ya. He grinned at Aylia. Nice to see you back, witch cakes. She laughed. Nice to be back, wolf cakes, though I wonder if everyone else will welcome me back so readily. He snatched a sandwich from a tray in the center of the table. Sure they will. We wolves love a good witch. He took a bite and then added, of course, a few wolves might get the grand idea of using that necklace of yours for monster making like Andres did. He lifted his chin at Nico. You planning to let her wear it? He's not letting me do anything. I make my decisions. She glanced at Nico. You're not my alpha and don't forget it. I'm wearing my necklace. Actually, Nico said, drawing out the word, I was going to talk to you about the necklace. She stood up. Nico, damn it. He reached for her and pulled her to stand between his legs, his hands settling on her hips. If you're wearing it, you're a target. If we're going to be together, then I'm going to be exposed to a civil war. Even when it ends, you will have enemies. My coven is now actively involved in fighting the rebels and the rogue vampires that prey on humans. Do you really think that at this point I'm not a target? My necklace grants me additional magic I could well need to fight off an attack. Both times you were attacked, you didn't use that magic. I froze up. I'm not used to fighting. I'll learn. Teach me because I'm not letting go of my necklace. She swallowed her emotions, lowering her voice. When I don't have it, I feel like I'm living out a terminal diagnosis and I'm the Walking Dead. I know you're trying to protect me. I know you always mean well, but the closer it gets to my birthday, the more I fear taking it off. Losing it. Teach me to fight and improve my instincts. If anyone can teach me, you can. He rested his head on her stomach a moment. I don't want you to have to fight. I don't want you in danger. But I am. I accept that. You have to as well. I'll teach you to fight so you can kick Nico's ass for me, Cole offered. It's against pack rules for me to do it. She ignored him. She loved Cole, but there was no humor in her right now. If you still aren't convinced, Nico, then consider that Andres couldn't have used my spell, bound by my coven's blood, on his own. There is a process to drawing out that kind of magic from an object, and doing so when it's not your spell is nearly impossible. There is no way Andres created that darkness back at the diner without some major magic mojo either. We're talking someone who has natural-born magic and a long lifetime of practice developing it. A witch? Cole asked. Aylia glanced at him. Or a warlock? She tried to move away and Nico wrapped his arm around her waist. She sighed and continued. My coven's been working with the wardens since we had our little falling out with the society to find out who, and so has Marcus. No one knows if Andres wasn't the true leader, Cole said. If this witch or warlock is instead, then killing him may have done nothing to slow the rebels. Aylia nodded. The problem is that we have no proof that there is a witch or warlock, but there has to be. There just isn't any way Andres used that kind of magic on his own. So the first priority has to be to find this wizard or witch, Cole said. The first priority has to be to get any traitors out of the society, Nico corrected. I can convince a few of my coven members to help me cast veils in the society headquarters. The veils basically catch any spells that are attempted inside the certain areas of the property. That way you have safe zones. I thought your coven was pretty pissed about us blaming them for the Andres mess, Cole said. Between Aylia, our king, and Marcus, Nico said, I'm certain we can make amends. He glanced at Aylia. The king is calling your priestess for a private meeting tomorrow anyway. We should probably call your mother and your stepfather. I'll wait until we convince the priestess all is well, Aylia said. My mother is pretty pissed at you. Alrighty then, Cole said, pushing to his feet. I've filled my stomach and I've listened to some entertaining arguing. I now know that I will soon be fighting some magic madman or woman who can probably turn me to a frog with a magic wand. I'm going to have a drink. I'll be at Amsterdam if you need me. Of course, Nico said. Where else would you be but a bar where the women dance half naked on top of tables? Exactly, Cole said and wiggled an eyebrow. But it's inside cages. He saluted Aylia. The offer to teach you to kick Nico's ass will remain open. You'll have to figure out how to do it yourself before you can teach it, Nico said dryly. Cole let out a deep, evil laugh as he headed for the door. Maybe I've been holding out on you. As soon as the door closed behind Cole, Aylia turned to face Nico, her hands on his shoulders. He isn't holding out on you. Don't read into that joke. Cole is not a traitor. Keep going. Make me feel better. Tell me I'm crazy. Tell me that, as alpha, blood bonded to my pack, I can smell my wolf's emotions. Tell me that I'd no deceit from any of my guard. Sounds like you've done a good job of telling yourself. She studied him a moment. This is about Rebecca, isn't it? She asked of the wolf that had attacked her with Andres, who'd betrayed Nico and the guard. Because you couldn't smell her betrayal. And I should have been able to. Someone had to have cast what is called a shield spell on Rebecca. It would have sheltered her from your senses. And if you have another traitor, I suspect they too have been cast with the same spell. But there are ways to use magic to trace magic. I can do it. I just had no idea I needed to when I was here. By the way, you don't necessarily have to have a traitor for Andres to have known you had the necklace. Magic imprints on a person. It's too complicated, with too many options to fully explain, but there are spells that allow that imprint to be picked up. Granted, the spells have to be worked at close proximity. That's why I couldn't locate my necklace myself. Believe me, I tried. In other words, someone close to me could be using magic to deceive me, and they could have used it to locate the necklace. It's not Cole. He was the only one who knew I had the necklace. We just established that anyone could have used magic to find it if they were close to you. How would they get close to me? We have no witches or warlock here. Magic can be shared in various ways, she said. Placed in objects or cast inside a person with a time limit. Again, it's complicated. You just need to know it's possible. So it could still be Cole. It's not Cole, Nico. We don't know that there is even a traitor at all, but I'll keep repeating the not Cole statement until you believe it. For now, please let's move to other options. There is a way I can share my magic with you, a spell. It will work like my necklace and repel any magic masking your wolf's emotions. We'll need to do a blood bond to make it work though. It's a powerful spell. Like the bond that mated wolves, the bond she and Nico could never have. Afraid that was the can of worms she just opened, she quickly blurted. I think we should consider Serena a suspect. Aylia, I don't. I know. I do. I'm talking about Cole and Serena. Is he seeing her? No, he shook his head. Hell, I don't know. He's been dipping his stick so much lately. I don't know what's up with him. That's part of the reason that I'm worried about him being involved in this mess. He's not himself. But we're talking about Serena, she reminded him. Right. Okay. Serena, what exactly did you see that makes you target her as a suspect? When we were Benedanti after our little confrontation, I saw Cole glaring at Serena, and it seemed to be because she was glaring at me. Something about the moment just struck me wrong, like he didn't like her jealousy over you. She always hated me because she wanted you, Nico. She still does. Might be reason to help the enemy. She thought I was through with you. I made sure everyone did. She sucked in a breath, her heart twisting with those words. Right. So did I. Aylia. He pulled her into his lap. Sweetheart, you know why I did what I did. I do. I'm okay. Really. I'll deal with this. Just it seemed like it was so easy for you to send me away. It made me feel like I didn't belong here. And it makes me worry about the day some female wolf shows up and just happens to be your real mate. Maybe I wasn't supposed to come back, Nico. Maybe I can't stay or shouldn't stay no matter how much I want to. Chapter 7. Morning ever after. Nico heard Aylia's words and rejected them instantly. She was meant to be here. She was meant to be with him. There was no other mate for him but Aylia. And he was going to prove that to her once and for all. Nico picked her up and exited the dining area, carrying her to the black leather living room couch where he set her down. He dropped to his knee in front of her. I was going to save this for a perfect planned moment, but I think right now it's pretty important I tell you now. I've petitioned the king to name you as my official mate, and to have you recognized as that in the society. No, she said instantly, shaking her head. No, Nico. I'm not your mate. Doesn't matter how much I want to be or how much you think you want me to be. I'm a witch, not a wolf. I can't be your mate. How much I think I want you to be, he challenged. Aylia, sweetheart. Don't think. I know. You are my mate. You're the only woman I have ever called mate in 200 years. If that doesn't say everything, I don't know what does. You think I'm the one until you find the right woman, the right wolf. And, Nico, that will kill me. It will absolutely devastate me. I don't know if I can live with that hanging over my head. I don't want a wolf, Aylia. I want my little witch. He reached inside his pocket and pulled out a velvet sack. I've had this since 2 weeks before you left. I promised myself I'd give it to you soon, and soon turned into more than a year. He dumped the contents into his palm. Aylia sucked in a breath at the sight of the diamond and ruby ring he'd picked out for her, before her gaze lifted to his and he explained his choice. We were both born in July, so I thought our birthstone made a perfect engagement ring. Marry me, Aylia. Be my wife and my mate. You're already my heart and soul. I was miserable without you and desperate to protect you. I regret ever sending you away. I just hope you can forgive me. But whether you do or you don't, I swear to you that I'll spend a lifetime making it up to you. Tears streamed down her face. No, I can't take that. I love you, Nico. But he kissed her, a deep, passionate, salt-tinged kiss. Marry me, Aylia. I can't. He kissed her again, taking his time, making love to her with his mouth, his tongue, before again saying, marry me. Nico, she whispered huskily. Damn it, you don't understand. Aylia, he countered. Damn it. I love you. I love you too, she whispered. I love you so very much, Nico. Then just say yes, woman. There is nothing but you between us. My king has approved our marriage wholeheartedly, and I'll go ask for your hand with your mother and try to get her over being so pissed off at me. I know she's very traditional, and I'm not above kissing her ass to win your hand. We'll have a huge ceremony or a small one. Or we'll run off to the real Italy rather than our little hotel world. You've always wanted to travel. Whatever you want. Baby, that's what we will do. What if Aylia, he said, cutting off what was certain to be an objection. There is no what if. I knew the instant I first saw you that you were my mate. Every instinct in me screamed mine. I've never experienced that with anyone. He pulled the tie on her robe and slid it away from her body. Her eyes softened instantly and she breathed out his name. Nico. He tossed his shirt off, then drew her hand to his chest. Your turn. She stared at him and then slowly smiled. Mine. Relief washed over him and was quickly replaced by possessiveness. His woman. His wife. His mate. He took her hand and slid the ring on her finger. She stared down at it. It's perfect. I love it. Her big green eyes lifted to his. And I love you. I do. I really, really do. And you'll marry me. She nodded. Yes. He smiled and stood up, quickly undressing and then snatching a small knife from his pocket. She arched a brow. What is that for? You know what it's for, he said, sitting down and reaching for her. We can't mate, she said. Don't torture me with proving that. He pulled her across his lap, the V of her body settling on top of his cock. It's a ritual of love. It doesn't have to bond us physically to mean something. And maybe the fates will have pity on us, and it will. Nico. He kissed her. I love you. He lifted her and wrapped his hand around his cock to guide it inside her, until she'd taken all of him. Until she had all of him. His body, his soul, and his heart. He took her hand. It'll hurt. I know. If it works. The crescent moon would appear on my palm right away, and we'll have a bond that. We already have a bond, he said, brushing hair from her face. There is not way that this can be anything but right, Aylia. This is just for us, okay? She hesitated and then, yes, okay. He sliced his palm and then took her hand and sliced it. She gasped and he swallowed the sound, dropping the knife before pressing their palms together. Slowly he began to move inside her, trying to make her forget the pain, to replace it with pleasure. For several seconds she was stiff, the pain of the cut controlling her. Finally though, she started to kiss him back, to move with him, to moan with the pleasure. You okay? He asked against her mouth. I'm with you, aren't I? Yes. You're with me. And then he leaned forward and whispered in his ancient tongue the bonding rites before saying, "And from this point on, my little witch, you belong to me and I belong to you." He leaned back to look at her. "And you must obey me." She laughed. "Good luck on that one. I'll have to teach you how to obey." He drew her mouth close to his. "I'll have to teach you manners." "I can't wait," he said, closing his mouth over hers, kissing her deeply, hungrily, while the wolf in him willed the bonding process into place. And, with every stroke of his cock, every shared touch and kiss, he silently proclaimed her his, until they shattered together and she collapsed on top of him. For a long while they rested there, their palms still pressed together, and he knew, like him, she was afraid to have him look at her neck. "Aylia," he said finally, unable to wait any long, "let me look at your neck." She pressed away from his shoulder and wrapped her hand around her necklace. "I need to cast the spell we talked about first so that you can put mind at ease about Cole." She was stalling, but he nodded in agreement. Aylia closed her eyes and began to chant a spell. The necklace glowed in response until she released it and opened her eyes. "It's done. We can go to Amsterdam and you can find out tonight about Cole." He could see the fear in her, the avoidance. "Let me look at your neck." "No, it's not there. We know it's not there." "Aylia, I have to look." She closed her eyes and bit her lip, and he slipped her hair away from the left side of her neck. His stomach knotted at the absence of the crescent moon. "It's not there," she whispered. He twined his fingers into her hair and pulled her mouth to his. "It doesn't matter. We love each other. We're going to be married and live happily ever after. Nothing is going to change what I feel for you. Okay?" "Yes," she whispered, but he knew she didn't believe him. He knew he was going to lose her, and it was killing him because he didn't know how to stop it from happening. Chapter 8. Magic revealed. Aylia had needed out of the room, and Nico agreed that there was no time like the present to find out if Cole was the friend he believed him to be. So after she dressed in a white mini dress that Nico had picked out for her and fixed her makeup, they headed to the public section of the hotel, to the Amsterdam nightclub where Cole had declared he'd be. Aylia followed Nico inside, her hand in his, the loud alternative music thrumming against the walls and fading into an open ceiling with more levels for patrons. It was a typical Vegas nightclub with a packed dance floor, plenty of booze, and half-naked women dancing on top of pedestals and in hanging cages. They found Cole at one of the tall ice sculpture-like tables with a female on either side of him. He saluted them with a beer. "Just like the old days," he said, and flagged a waitress. "The three of us back together," he whispered to each of the women, who then pouted and sashayed away. "Rum and coke," Nico told a waitress, "and a white Russian for the lady." "No," Aylia said. "Sprite, please." The waitress shrugged and walked away. "Sprite?" Cole asked. Nico studied her a moment and asked the same. "Sprite. My stomach feels a little funky." Nico looked worried, and she knew he was about to do the overprotective wolf routine she both dreaded and loved. She kissed his cheek. "I'm fine. It was just nerves over the whole mate thing." She knew it was. She'd be better tomorrow. "Aylia," came a male shout as a tall wolf with long dark hair tied at the back of his neck rushed towards their table. "Hey Jackson," Aylia said to Nico's third in charge. "So damn good to have you back," he said. "Is it?" she asked, leading him to answer to let Nico scent a lie. "Hell yeah," he said, scrubbing his stubble jaw. "You have no idea how glad. Nico was a cranky bastard while you were gone." Nico relaxed beside her, telling Aylia that he believed Jackson was telling the truth. "Fuck you, Jackson," he spat jokingly. "See," Jackson grinned. "He's in a better mood already. And I'm not kidding about that. This mood he's in is a big improvement." Aylia laughed and hugged Nico, whispering in his ear. "Well, were you?" He turned and kissed. "He's right. I was a cranky bastard without you, Jackson." Jackson turned and waved at another wolf she knew to be a member of the guard. "I'll be back," Jackson said, and disappeared into the crowd. Cole eyed Aylia's necklace. "I see you won the battle." "For now," Nico said. "Forever," Aylia corrected. "When she's with me," Nico rebutted. She gave him a sideways look. "Forever." "Wait a flipping minute," Cole said suddenly, grabbing Aylia's hand and whistling. "What a rock." Aylia smiled. "Yeah, it is. I guess this means there's no hope you'll get smart and leave him for me. If you keep holding her hand like that, Cole, Nico said, I'll rip yours off. Cole laughed and released her. Touchy. Still a cranky bastard from what I can tell. The waitress appeared, and once Aylia had her soda, she took a long drag off of the straw. Her stomach immediately churned. Not good. I need to sit. Nico pulled a stool closer and helped her climb on top. Her skirt rode way too high up her legs, and Nico arched a brow. You picked this dress, she reminded him. For me, not everyone else. That's why I'll need to go shopping tomorrow. Everything you picked out is just like this or shorter. Aylia's gaze lifted, and suddenly she realized that her new position put one of the cages in direct view. Inside was Serena, wearing thigh-highs and a red bra and panty set, and that was it. Not a stick of anything else. Nico's hand settled on Aylia's leg, silently telling her Serena meant nothing to him. She knew. She did. And she also knew that she was just a little overly sensitive about a beautiful wolf who wanted her wolf right about now. Something she would have to let go of if she and Nico were really going to spend forever together. What do you think of Serena, Cole? Aylia asked, trying to focus on the goal of finding the traitor, rather than Serena's almost naked ass bouncing around in the cage. I don't trust her, he said, finishing off a beer. I fucked the bitch to try and figure her out, and I still don't get her. Aylia almost choked on the swallow of soda she had in her mouth. I forgot how direct you wolves are. She glanced at Nico. And how honest Cole is, no matter what the subject. His lips lifted slightly. I just remembered that myself. She smiled. Good. Why do I think you two are talking in code? Cole asked. We are, Nico said. And I'll explain later. Aylia was suddenly very hot, too hot, and just plain not feeling well. She was starting to think this was more than nerves. She grabbed Nico's arm. Help me down, please, so my skirt doesn't go to my waist. I need to go to the bathroom. Nico lifted her and set her down, touching her cheek. You're clammy, Aylia. Let's go back to the room. No. You need to explain what's going on to Cole. I'm fine. I'll be right back. I'm going with you. Nico, she said, leaning into him. You can't come into the bathroom with me. Anyway, and you can't follow me everywhere for the rest of my life. And in case you forgot, that's how long I'll be wearing this necklace. He inhaled and let it out. If you're gone too long. She smiled. My big bad wolf will come after me. I know. She pressed to her toes and kissed him. It feels good to be back here with you. And yes, I'll hurry back. She turned away, but not without seeing his smile, and quickly headed through the crowd. Unfortunately, considering the churn of her stomach, she found the main bathroom overflowing with women. Unless she was going to throw up in the sink, she was out of luck. Aylia headed around a corner to a long set of steps and managed to climb them to the third level, where a small bathroom was hidden behind a bar. She entered through the open archway and sighed in relief. It was empty. She immediately collapsed against the wall and wiped the sweat that had gathered on her forehead. Oh yeah, she was sick. Really sick. Maybe if she just stayed right there and didn't move, it would pass. Her stomach made a horrible groaning sound. Maybe not. She reached for her purse where it hung across her shoulder. She needed to call Nico to come and get her. Another wave of sickness hit her, and she tossed that idea out, rushing towards the single bathroom stall, certain she was going to be sick. She was about to shove open the door to enter, when some instinct or sound, or maybe both, rushed over her. Maybe she was too sick to be afraid, but she didn't freeze. Aylia grabbed her necklace and whirled around, throwing a ball of energy at the unknown threat. Serena crashed against the wall with the knife in her hand. The magic was too much for her when she was so sick. Aylia threw another energy ball on her way to the toilet and threw up. Serena was already on her feet and coming at Aylia again, muttering something about the necklace. Aylia told herself to do something, and what she did was throw up again. Not a very effective method of protecting herself. Serena took the opportunity to lunge at Aylia. Cole rushed through the doors a moment before Aylia found herself hugging the toilet again. She didn't have time to doubt Cole, to fear that she'd misjudged him. Serena ran at Cole with her knife and they struggled. Cole was clearly trying to spare her life, but the blade somehow landed in Serena's stomach. Serena gasped and slid to the floor. Cole didn't give her a second look, heading for Aylia. Nico's flipping out. Trying to find you. He reached for his cell, clearly about to call him. Are you okay? Nico blasted through the door. Aylia, he shouted, quickly assessing her on the ground, then slamming Cole against the wall. No, Nico, Aylia shouted with her last bit of energy. He saved me. Cole. Saved me? Yeah, man, Cole grumbled. Relax. I saved her. Nico let go of Cole and rushed to Aylia, picking her up. I've got you, he said, just as he had when Andres had grabbed her. She curled into him. I can't stop throwing up. We'll get you help, he promised, and then to Cole, get me a doctor and her mother in case this is magic. Not my mother, she whispered. It's not magic. Please don't worry her. Sharp pain shot through her stomach, and that was the last thing she remembered. She blacked out. Chapter 9. Nico shoved open the door to their suite and headed to the bedroom. Aylia stirred. Bathroom. I need a bathroom. Relief that she was conscious rushed over him, and he bypassed the bed. The instant they were in the bathroom, she shoved away from him. Put me down. Quickly. Put me down. He set her on her feet and she scrambled for the toilet, falling down on her knees and heaving. Water. I need some water. Nico rushed to the kitchen when his phone rang. He grabbed it and answered. Even as he retrieved a bottle of water from the fridge and headed back to the bathroom. Doc's off-site, Cole said. He's on his way back though, and yes, I told him to hurry the fuck up. Nico hung up and entered the bathroom. Aylia was sitting with her knees curled to her chest, and he'd never seen her so pale. He rushed forward and opened the water, squatting down beside her to help her drink. Nico, she said hoarsely after gulping down several swallows. I've been around the society and seen women who were pregnant. They were sick like this when they first conceived. I know it's impossible for us, but I just have to ask, are you in season? She held up a finger. Hold that answer. She leaned over the toilet and threw up again. Nico sat there, feeling stunned by the question. She was right. It wasn't possible, but yet. You can't be pregnant. Wolves and humans can't reproduce. I'm a witch, she said, falling back against the tub. We have a different genetic code. A witch. Right. A witch. I don't believe this is really happening. You're pregnant. Are you telling me you're in season, Nico? And you didn't think that was important to mention? He pulled her into his arms. I didn't think it mattered. I know I keep saying this, but I can't believe this is really happening. We're going to have a baby. You should have told me, Nico, she whispered. I had a right to know. You don't want this, he realized, drawing back to study her expression. Because I do. I want this. How could I not want you to be the mother of my child? His gut tightened, thinking about how hard it had been to get her to put that ring on. I think I'm starting to understand. You just really don't want to be back here with me, do you, Aylia? Is that it? Do you regret coming back here? Nico, you don't want me as the mother of your child. She dropped her head to his chest and softened her voice. You don't. He slid his hands to her face and forced her to look at him. I do. No. No, you don't. Her bottom lip trembled. Think about my necklace, think about my life. Every offspring in my coven is cursed. Our child will be cursed. 30 minutes later, Aylia sat against the headboard waiting for Nico to return after letting the society's primary doctor out. She'd been given some kind of herb that had worked wonders to cure her nausea, and there was no question about her condition. She was pregnant. It was hard to believe that it was really possible. Guilt twisted inside her over her initial reaction. She'd hurt Nico and she knew it. She didn't want to hurt him, not now or ever. He appeared in the doorway and immediately crossed to the bed and sat down. You. Okay. I don't care about me right now. I care about you. I didn't mean to upset you. I love you, Nico. I do. I want to be your wife and I want to be the mother of your child. I was just scared. Hey, I still am. I already worry about the day someone jerks the necklace off of me and I die. How do we endure that fear with our child? I feel like I've cursed you to live in the same hellish world that is mine. He settled against the headboard beside her and pulled her into his arms. Our child. Our life. We'll deal with 2 necklaces and we'll live happily ever after. No matter whom I have to kill to make it so. She blinked and then laughed. That was such an alpha statement. You like it when I'm alpha. Admit it. I'll never admit it. I bet I can make you admit it. He leaned in to kiss her when Marcus and a strange man appeared at the end of the bed. Aylia sat up instantly. Marcus. Do you ever knock? Nico growled, pushing to his feet. I was eager to congratulate you two on the little bambino. And so was Ariel. Aylia stood up and tugged on the hem of her dress, studying the stranger with long hair so black it was almost blue and odd eyes that matched. Ariel? Like the archangel. He's my twin, he said. And I'm definitely not angelic. Marcus smiled at Nico. Ariel is the one who loaned us that room in the third dimension a while back. You mean the one I was locked up in for a week? Nico asked grumpily. That one, Marcus said. Ariel is my wedding gift to you too. Ariel held up his palm, showing them the marking there. My pendant is etched in your skin, Aylia gasped. Why? How? What does it mean? I am Benedanti. Benedanti? Nico asked. As in the legend about the werewolves that hunt witches. We don't hunt witches. We're the offspring of wolf and witch. And, unfortunately, it was a Benedanti that cursed the coven of the rain. I've done what I can to remove the curse but could not. The pendants your coven wear became my solution, and the gift of a longer life was my way of compensating for what your people have been through. But your situation is now different than that of your coven. Your child is Benedanti, already alive with powerful magic, so that I can give you a more permanent solution to the curse. What kind of solution? Nico demanded, distrust in his voice. The kind that works, Ariel replied without looking at Nico, his focus on Aylia. Hold out our hand. Aylia lifted her hand. Nico grabbed it and looked at Marcus. You're sure about this? Marcus gave a nod. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. Nico's eyes met hers and he let go of her. Aylia extended her hand again and Ariel pressed his palm to hers. Tingled and burned for a moment before Ariel lifted his hand from hers. She blinked at the etched pendant on her hand. Now I need you to press your palm to Nico's, Ariel instructed. She flattened her hand on Nico's and Ariel held his hand over theirs. A light poured over them. The instant Ariel pulled away, Nico snatched his hand and looked at his palm where the pendant was now etched. Aylia reached for it but suddenly her necklace heated and disappeared. The pendant is now a part of you, Aylia, and so is the counterspell to the curse. The magic of the necklace will forever run through every cell in your body, impossible to remove. If you wish to call on the magic you can do so as you do any of our natural-born magic. You no longer need the blood of your coven members to cast powerful spells. You will be capable of doing so on your own. His attention turned to Nico. You are now Benedanti as well, Nico, and your destiny is one that has long been leading to this day. You are needed in a war much more dangerous than the one you fight now. I would like you to visit our operation and consider joining us. I have a responsibility here, Nico replied, pulling Aylia close. Your war is over. It was a Benedanti pulling Andres' strings, and we have dealt with this traitor. Your second in charge should be able to handle the rounding up of the remaining rebels. After, of course, you get Cole's head back on straight. How do you know what is going on with Cole? Nico demanded. I'm old and wise, Ariel said, his lips twitching. What's going on with Cole? Nico asked. Ariel's lips twitched. That's between you and Cole. How old? Aylia asked, growing more and more curious about this stranger. Marcus laughed. He's too damn old, I can tell you that. She cut her gaze to the vampire warden, also curious about him now. And how old are you? Depends on the day you ask. One day I'm too damn old and others not old. Enough. Ariel's odd eyes settled on Nico. I will extend an offer of Benedanti support here in the society if you so wish until you join us. If I join you, Nico corrected. Ariel's eyes flashed before he said, You will. Nico narrowed his eyes on Aylia. You seem sure of that. I am. Nico stared at Aylia a moment and then shook his head. I'm not going to ask. How? Because I know the answer will be magic that I don't intend to understand. But you gave me Aylia's safety and I am indebted to you for doing so. I'll visit you and I'll hear what you have to say. Aylia inclined his head. I'll have a formal invitation extended immediately. With details. I'll be expecting it. Nico replied and scrubbed his jaw. You wouldn't happen to know if I have any more traitors in my operation? 3, Ariel said. And no, I do not have names. Simply a number I know. You will figure it out easily with your new abilities. He glanced between them. You no longer need a crescent moon to be bonded. You are bound by magic for now and evermore. Aylia's eyes collided with Marcus's and he winked before he and Ariel disappeared. Nico immediately went down on his knee in front of her and held her hand. Now, I ask you again, will you marry me? She blinked down at him. I don't understand. I already said yes before. You said yes with a silent but. Say yes like you mean it. She bent down on her knees in front of him and pressed her hands to his face. Yes, yes, yes. He pulled her down on the floor and settled on top of her. We have much to talk about, my little witch, my mate. Later though. Much later. He kissed her with a passion that promised this was going to be one heck of a wicked Benedante night.